after the referendum to rejoin Russia, Putin declares the four Ukraine annexed regions Russian forever. He also blames the United States for the Nord Stream attacks. Now, let's remember, Russia has many other gas pipelines connecting Russian gas into Europe. We don't know what's happening with those, but the Nord Stream has had recent history in that President Biden and Victoria Nuland both stated that they would not allow it to work. Now, Putin declares the four annexed regions after the referendum as being Russian territory, which means that he will attempt to move in his forces there, take out the Ukrainian forces, and control and protect the new annexed regions as being Russian territory. The ink drying on the official annexation declarations, they were signed today by the heads of Lugansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia. Zaporizhzhia is where they have the nuclear power plant. And this is the historic ceremony took place today. President Putin's lengthy speech is that he declared a mission accomplished of sorts. He said these eastern and southern provinces are now part of Russia forever. He also stated that the referendums were accomplished in line with the UN Charter on Self-Determination for All People. He vowed that they have made their choice. This is the only path to peace. He said, we will protect our land using all our forces, and we will protect their security. We will, of course, rebuild all destroyed towns and continue building hospitals, theaters, and schools, he said. Putin informed the large audience of top officials at St. George's Hall in the Grand Kremlin Palace of Moscow that there are now four new regions of Russia, a fait accompli, that the Ukrainian government and its Western backers are rejecting. Also on fresh reports that pro-Kremlin forces suffered more setbacks in Donetsk in particular. Now, this means Kiev is, of course, unlikely to accept Putin's essential assertion of we've taken the four territories and now let the negotiations begin. He said, we call on the Kiev regime to immediately stop hostilities and sit at the negotiation table, is what Putin stated. Washington and London will seek to ensure Kiev is not enticed by this. Also, as the weapon shipments continue to ramp up with longer range missile systems and pipeline to boot. And for the newly annexed territories, Putin made clear in his speech that we won't negotiate the status of the annexed territories, and further that he will not discuss the now finalized results of the election referendum. And this follows Crimea having long been taken off the table since its own popular referendum and annexation back in 2014. Also, Putin blamed the United States for this week's unexplained explosions at the Nord Stream pipelines that left the damaged pipelines leaking huge amounts of natural gas into the Baltic Sea. He said it's obvious to everyone who did it. On the issue of dwindling energy supplies, soaring costs, heading into what is sure to be a rough, cold winter for European populations, he slammed Western elites for the problem of their own making. He says, they print money, but you cannot warm your houses with this printed money. They have to convince their citizens to shower less, eat less, and put on warm clothes. The Western elites, he says, it's a crisis due to their own fault. He describes that the goal of the hybrid war in Ukraine has a goal to break Russia at any costs. And he says we don't want to have parents number 1 and 2 and 3 instead of mom and dad in Russia. We do want children to be told that there are other genders besides men and women. Is this the future we want for our children? For us, this is unacceptable, the Russian president said. Do we want? I made a mistake. So all eyes were also on the outlook for any references to Russia's nuclear stance. Putin also slammed Washington's past use of nuclear weapons, comments that followed his warning last week that he was not bluffing about resorting to any means necessary in Ukraine. Putin said the US is the only country in the world to have used nuclear weapons, creating a precedent. As Putin spoke in the Kremlin, hundreds of Russians gathered in Red Square in front of the stage, emblazoned with words Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporizhzhia, Kherson, Russia. In the latest sign that followed the annexation declaration, the referendum that is, things are only going to escalate from here. Ukraine's President Zelensky today responded to Putin's speech by requesting accelerated entrance into NATO and more of Ukraine's immediate response to Putin's annexation. Zelensky tweeted that we're ready for dialogue with Russia, but with another president of Russia, in other words, without Putin. So, according to Russian state media, Putin refers to the universally recognized principles and norms of international law and the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples enshrined in the U.S. Charter. In contrast to Kremlin's perspective, Western officials and media sources slamming the big land grab. It's about 20% of the whole of the territory of Ukraine that has now been, with the referendum annexation vote, passed on to Russia. The United States will never recognize Ukrainian territory as anything other than part of Ukraine. Russian referendum are a sham, false pretext to try to annex parts of Ukraine by force in flagrant violation of international law, including the United Nations Charter, the White House statement said. Putin said in a televised meeting with officials, as voting closed in the 4 regions, saving people in the territories where this referendum is taking place is the focus of the attention of our entire society and of the entire country. But according to the latest battlefield updates from Reuters, which cites pro-Russian officials in the breakaway eastern republics, things aren't going well on Donetsk amid the ongoing large Ukrainian counteroffensive. And we'll have more news on this as things develop. This is on Zero Hedge by Tyler Durden. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.